All right, let's set the scene. The year is 1941. The German war machine, the Wehrmacht, looks like it's completely and utterly unstoppable. I mean, it's rolled over most of Europe with this terrifying new strategy called Blitzkrieg, the lightning war. The whole idea is to hit so hard and so fast that the enemy just shatters in weeks. And now they're turning that terrifying power on their biggest target yet, the Soviet Union. This is the story of Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in all of human history and really a catastrophic turning point in World War II. So that's the big question, isn't it? How does an army that just crushed Poland and France in the blink of an eye end up frozen solid, completely broken at the gates of Moscow just 6 months later? Well, the answer, it's a complicated mess of arrogance, a deeply flawed strategy, logistical night news, and of course, the one enemy they just couldn't outmaneuver, General Winter. You have to understand, for Adolf Hitler, this was the war. It was an ideological crusade. He hated communism, and he saw the huge, sprawling lands of the Soviet Union as essential living space for Germany. A place packed with all the resources you'd need to dominate the world. The plan itself, codenamed Barbarossa, looked pretty simple on paper. Just a quick, decisive blitz to annihilate the Red Army and take Moscow before Winter even had a chance to show up. And the sheer scale of the force they assembled is just staggering. We're talking over 4 million men, thousands upon thousands of tanks and aircraft lined up on the border. But all of this incredible power was built on a really shaky foundation of, well, miscalculation. The German High Command was unbelievably confident. They thought the Soviet Union was a colossus with feet of clay that would just crumble with one good kick. This massive underestimation of Soviet willpower and their sheer manpower was probably the first and maybe the biggest mistake of the whole campaign. So when the invasion finally kicked off at dawn, the shock was total. Someone had ignored dozens of warnings, leaving the Red Army just completely unprepared. Commanders were in a daze, orders were a chaotic mess, and in those first few days and weeks, the Soviet front lines, they basically just evaporated under the German attack. It was a military disaster on an absolutely epic scale. Now, the German advance was breathtakingly fast. They used their classic Blitzkrieg move, these pincer attacks to surround and trap entire Soviet armies. These huge encirclements became known as Kessels, which is German for kettles. But here's the catch. Every single one of these massive victories, while they looked devastating for the Soviets, cost the Germans the one thing they could never, ever get back: time. I mean, just look at these numbers. In the Bialystok-Minsk pocket alone, more than 300,000 Soviet soldiers were captured. Down near Uman in Ukraine, another 100,000. These were unbelievable victories, no doubt. But cleaning up these massive pockets took weeks, and it slowed the whole advance down and stretched the German supply lines to their breaking point with every single mile they pushed forward. And this quote, it tells you everything you need to know about the mood in the Kremlin. There are reports that Stalin himself just fell into a deep depression, disappearing from public view for days. The entire Soviet experiment looked like it was about to just completely collapse. His generals were reporting nothing but one catastrophe after another. The whole situation looked absolutely hopeless. And this brings us to what might be the single most critical decision of the entire campaign. By late summer, the Wehrmacht's only good center was perfectly positioned to make that final war-winning push for Moscow. But Hitler overruled his generals. He made a fateful choice, a choice that many historians will tell you cost him the entire war. So what it all boils down to is this huge disagreement over the main goal. The generals were practically screaming for a direct strike on Moscow. It was the political heart, the industrial center, the transportation hub of the whole country. They were convinced that taking it would be the knockout blow. But Hitler, he got fixated on securing the resource-rich areas of Ukraine and wiping out the Soviet armies on his southern flank. So he ordered his main tank armies to turn south, away from the ultimate prize, and head for Kiev instead. And the result of that decision was another mind-boggling tactical victory. The encirclement at Kiev was the biggest in military history. They captured over 660,000 Soviet prisoners, and on paper, it was an absolute triumph. But it was a Pyrrhic victory in every sense of the word. And there it is. That's the strategic disaster right there. That massive diversion to Kiev chewed up all of August and most of September. That was precious, irreplaceable time. By the time it was over, the summer was gone. The autumn rain started, turning every road into a sea of mud, and you could feel the first hint of winter in the air. The Blitzkrieg was officially stuck in a war of attrition it was never designed to win. Finally, in late September, Hitler gave the go-ahead for the advance on Moscow, an operation codenamed Typhoon. But by this point, it was just a desperate race against the clock. The German soldiers were completely exhausted. Their equipment was worn out, and their supply lines were stretched over 1,000 kilometers, just on the verge of total collapse. This timeline really shows you just how agonizingly close they came. By the beginning of December, some German reconnaissance units could actually see the spires of the Kremlin through their binoculars. They were literally on the outskirts of the city. Victory seemed like it was right there, just within their grasp. And then, everything just fell apart. The temperature just plummeted to minus 40 degrees. Can you even imagine? The German army was planned for a quick summer war. They simply were not ready for this. They had no winter clothing. Tank engines wouldn't start because the fuel and oil had frozen solid. And just as the Wehrmacht was grinding to a halt, Stalin unleashed his secret weapon. Fresh, fully equipped divisions from Siberia, guys who were experts in fighting in exactly these conditions. On December 5th, the Soviets launched a massive counteroffensive. The exhausted, freezing, and completely overstretched German minds just shattered. For the very first time in the entire war, the supposedly invincible Wehrmacht wasn't just stopped, it was thrown into a desperate, panicked retreat. The myth of German invincibility died right there in the snows outside Moscow. So when you look back, you can see exactly why this lightning war strategy completely fell apart. See, Blitzkrieg is designed for short, sharp fights where you can overwhelm your enemy before they even know what hit them. It was the absolute wrong tool for the vast, endless distances of Russia, where the defender could always trade space for time, and where, ultimately, logistics, not tactics, decided who won. So, to wrap it all up, the failure of Barbarossa was really a cascade of mistakes, and it all started with overconfidence. The German command fatally underestimated the Soviets' ability to call out millions of new soldiers and to literally move their factories out of harm's way. The logistics were never going to be good enough for such a deep advance. And you had Hitler's disastrous call to delay the attack on Moscow that pretty much sealed their fate. And finally, winter showed up to deliver the knockout blow to an army that was already on the ropes. And that leaves us with this one last, really crucial question. The war would drag on for 3.5 more brutal years, but failing to win that quick victory in 1941 trapped Germany in a two-front war of attrition, but it could never, ever win. So, was this the moment the tide really turned? Was the road to Berlin already being paved in those frozen fields just outside of Moscow? Now that's something to think about.